Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Maker Breakdowns, the show where I take an in-depth look at one of my Mario Maker 2 courses. But first, I want to mention a few things you'll need to know going into this video. First, you'll notice that it's cut differently than the last one. This is because this stage is quite long. So, in the interest of time, I'll be cutting back and forth between the playthrough and the descriptions throughout the video. The second thing you need to know is that, due to the nature of this course, I'll often reference two separate areas as one. This is because I duplicated the map in the sub-area to make them appear to be the same, just in different states. Lastly, I may refer to Mario as Link in some instances, and the reason for that should be obvious. Anyway, with that out of the way,
let's go!
Starting off, we have this room. First, there doesn't seem to be much going on here. We have a suspicious hole in the ceiling, though it's not clear how to get up there yet. On the right, we have a green pipe that spawns a Master Sword power-up. This power-up will transform Mario into Link, giving him access to the sword and shield, as well as bombs, a bow, Pegasus boots, and even a downward sword stab that acts like a ground pound. However, even with this power-up, it's still not immediately obvious what we have to do. Honestly, I left this first bit open-ended, because I was never too certain what the player would do first. Whether they would jump around to find a way up or try to enter the pipe first, I just couldn't think of a way to steer it in either direction, so I simply left it up to the player. Though, for simplicity, I will explain the puzzles in their original intended order, which assumes the player would try the pipe first. So what happens when we enter the pipe? Well, when we emerge from the other side, we find ourselves in a room that looks very similar to the one we just left, though it appears to be falling apart and overgrown with vines, insinuating that time has passed, and thus we have the core mechanic of this course: time travel. That's right, these are no ordinary warp pipes. These pipes bring our sword-wielding plumber back and forth between the peaceful present and the doomed future. So what's going on in this version of the room? Well, as I said before, it appears to be overgrown and dilapidated. A few vines and even a fire-spitting piranha plant hang from the ceilings. We see one vine growing out of a block, however, that goes up to that hole in the ceiling we couldn't get to previously. This is actually a subtle hint how we can get up there later. On the far left, we have what looks like the starting area, but the sign is knocked over and pointing up. A block seems to be missing from the small ceiling above it. Both are hints to solving another puzzle, but at this point, I assume the player would climb the vine, in which case they would run into another piranha plant inside one of these donuts, which Mario cannot pass through. However, we do get a glance at the room above before being forced to move on. I had no idea what the player would do at this point, but my hopes were that they would try jumping toward the missing block indicated by the arrow. This reveals a key we'll be using a bit later. So at this point, there doesn't seem to be much left to do here. That's because now, we have to travel back in time to progress. Now, back in the present, Mario will hopefully jump around in the same spot where he saw that vine block in the future. This will finally take him through the hole and on to the next room. As expected, the next room resembles the room we caught a glimpse of earlier, just cleaner and more intact. We see a pipe on the left and a door on the right, which is blocked off by this red wall. Entering the pipe, we emerge in the future version of the room. Here the red wall is partially missing, and the door is blocked by these quote-unquote hard blocks. These hard blocks can be destroyed through a few different means, such as spiky balls, spiked helmets, and even jumping on them with a mega mushroom. But for this course, we'll be focusing on explosions from bombs as well as Link's bombs, which will also destroy these blocks. All we have to do then is take our key to the door and
Open salami!
Oh, come on, Mario. We rehearsed this. It's open sesame.
Oh.
Not open salami, not open spaghetti,
Spaghetti.
and definitely not open ravioli.
Ravioli.
Get it right, man. Moving on. Here, the path ends abruptly. Ahead, we see that some vines and piranha plants are obscuring an on-off switch. These on-off switches control whether the red and blue blocks are solid or not. When the switch is red, the red blocks will be solid and blue ones won't, and they will alternate states every time the switch is activated. Beyond those are a pair of blocks, one of which has a vine growing out of it. as well as an area further to the right that we can't access yet. Now this first on-off switch would normally be nearly impossible for Mario to hit. Fortunately, he brought his bow today because with a well-placed shot, he can flip the switch, making the red blocks vanish and turning the blue blocks solid. However, this doesn't seem to have any noticeable benefit in this area, so Mario has to backtrack. He'll soon notice that with the red blocks out of the way, he can now access this area in the present time. In this time period, the bridge is still intact, and we can now cross over to this small tower that acts like a drawbridge. If he caught on to the subtle hint earlier, he may even jump while crossing this blue bridge. Doing so will reveal a vine similar to what we saw in the future segment. Climbing will reveal an item block on the left that was hidden off camera. This block contains the key that we couldn't get in the future. We can now go right across the top here to find a strange mechanism that doesn't seem to do anything beneficial. Another small hint to reward the curious player. But when we continue across the bridge, we see that Mario has to hit this on-off switch on the floor to get to the next area. This can be done with bombs or arrows, of course, but the intended method is the down stab. Entering the next area, Mario is presented with a locked door on the right and a pipe on the floor directly in front of him. This is another part where the route is up to the player, but the intention is that the player would have found the key and thus would have gone for the locked door first, so we'll go there first as well. In this room is a single pipe on the floor, and that strange useless mechanism we saw before. We also see a big Koopa on the right behind a wall we can't get through. So Mario tries the pipe. Unfortunately, the pipe seems to be blocked in the future, and thus he is sent back to the present. At this point, his only option is to make his way back to the pipe in the previous room. However, the pipe seems to have sunk below the one-way floor in the future, so once you leave it, you can't go back. So, we get to backtrack some more. At this point, the intention is that Mario would go back and try to cross the top part to get to that odd mechanism, and would find that in this time period, the contraption seems to be a bit messed up. This time, it does something different, ultimately resulting in a bomb falling down and exploding, clearing the blocked pipe we got stuck at earlier. But now we have a problem. How do we go back in time? We can't use the pipe we just came out of because we can't go through the floor. Well, after backtracking some more, Mario might still try to get that impossible key, and may notice the hard blocks that are blocking access to a room on the left. Bombing these reveals a hidden entrance to one of the earlier rooms, where we have access to a pipe, though you may have to flip an on-off switch again to bypass the red blocks. And finally, we can get back to the pipe that was previously blocked, and make our way to the next section. First, however, there are a few sections I haven't shown you yet that I want to discuss. While watching, you may have noticed the pits under the drawbridge. Well, these pits aren't what you might expect, as they aren't actually bottomless. In fact, we find that we can escape these pits by making our way to the left. This is not without its dangers, though, as a Hammer Bro and his pet Chomp live down here, guarding their precious treasure, a Master Sword. In the future, this pit is even more perilous. It now features a few piranha plants, and we can see that the Hammer Bro and his Chomp are still guarding their sword, but both have gotten larger. Now, we just made it through the previously blocked pipe, and once again we find ourselves in the room with the strange machine, except that the floor on the left has collapsed, and the wall on the right is now made of hard blocks, meaning we can destroy it. We also notice that the Koopa seems to have spent so long trapped here that he became a dry bones. Ending his eternal torment will reward Mario with another key. Proceeding through the hole in the floor on the left, we find a room full of rubble, some of which can be cleared away with bombs to progress and collect the spiked helmet here. The key we got from the dead Koopa unlocks the door on the right, bringing us to the mini-boss fight. Here we face Iggy, who represents the old and decrepit boss of this temple. His mount is a giant winged chomp on top of an equally giant Goomba stiletto. Mario, the elf boy in green, can choose to fight him head on, but if he can sneak past and hit this note block over here, it will drop a muncher triggering this P-switch, which, in turn, will cause the floor in the boss arena to disappear, dropping Iggy to his demise. After that, we run into something which resembles the goal flag, but it doesn't seem to work. The arrow pointing left is a hint, however, that Mario needs to go left, but because of the one-way wall, he can't go back the way he came. So how do we progress? Well, Mario will have to bounce on the note block again to reach the area above the boss room. Proceeding left, he finds some more hard blocks, doing what they do best, and by clearing these away with a bomb, we can access the new pipe and move on to the final segment. We emerge from the pipe back in the present, and soon we drop back down to the boss area. On the left is a locked door which can be accessed with the key from the mini-boss. Inside is a pointless Master Sword for decoration and another helmet we can grab. Once back outside, the boss fight begins. This time we have Ludwig, representing the younger version of the temple boss. His mount also reflects the time period, as both the Chomp and Goomba stiletto are smaller. This boss can be fought exactly the same way as Iggy, either head-on or using the note block on the right to remove the floor under him. This time we find the real goal flag, and with that, we come to the end of this course. So I have to say, something unique happened with this course. When I first finished building it, I wasn't really impressed by it. I guess I felt like there wasn't much of a course here, and it was all focused on the time travel gimmick. However, during this analysis, I totally changed my mind about it. They didn't really need a bunch of platforming or enemies to pad it out. It has a free roam feel to it, and doing things out of sequence doesn't really have any significant impact. This course actually turned out better than I thought. I should also mention that I didn't show everything in this course for this video. I wanted to leave a few surprises for people to find on their own. So we come to the end of another video. I had a lot of fun working on this one. Now for the next video I want to do something a bit more technical, where I show you an interesting contraption, showcase a stage I built around it, and finally show you how to build it all yourself. But I'm out of time for now, so thank you very much for watching, and as always, take it easy.